In this movie, I'll show you how to introduce some texture into your custom gradient using dynamic effects. Specifically, we'll be going for this grass texture right here, but there's all kinds of stuff you can do. All right, so I'll go ahead and switch over to my pre-texture file, and I'll click on those rolling hills with the black arrow tool in order to select that blend. And you know it's a blend because it's identified as such over here in the far left side of the control panel. All right, so let's say you want the hills to bob up and down a little more aggressively. The first thing I'll do is press Control-H or Command-H on a Mac in order to hide my anchor points, and that way we can just see things better on screen. And then I'll go up to the Effect menu, choose Distort and Transform, and let's start with Tweak. I'll go ahead and choose that command, and then I'll turn on the preview checkbox so you can see how things are buffeting up and down in the background. I'm going to go ahead and switch from relative to absolute, and I'll take the horizontal value down to 0 because we really don't need things moving back and forth. We need the gradient intervals to move up and down, and we can do that by raising this vertical value right here, and I'm pressing Shift up arrow in order to increase the value in increments of 10 points. And as you can see, at 60 points, we get a whole lot of action going on. And it pretty much ruins any smooth color effect we might have had previously, but it gives us a lot of extra action in those intervals. You also have the option of deciding what it is you're modifying. Anchor points controls the placement of anchor points. And so if you turn that off, you're not going to move any anchor points. You're just going to move the so-called control points here. Those are really the control handles, however. And you can even decide, well, I actually just want to move the handles that are going out of the points, not the ones that are going in. Or you can try the opposite effect like so. And each time you're going to get something different out of it. So it really depends if you want gentle rolling, in which case you want to modify the control handles and not the anchor points, or if you want a bunch of spiky action, in which case you definitely want to modify the anchor points and possibly leave the control handles alone. All right, so I'm just doing this for the sake of demonstration. I'm going to cancel out here. And now let's say we want a waving effect. So for example, imagine that instead of editing grass, this were supposed to be water. In that case, you would go up to the Effect menu, choose Distort and Transform, and choose Zigzag instead. And now I'll go ahead and turn on the preview checkbox, and you can see a bunch of spikes going on in the background. And you can increase the size of those spikes by switching from relative to absolute, if indeed relative is selected for you in the first place. And then we can increase that size value to something like 20 points. And notice we're getting all kinds of additional spiking going on. If you want these to be more gentle waves, then switch your points from corner to smooth, like so, and you'll get more of a rippling effect. And if you want to soften things down a little bit further, then decrease this ridges per segment value. And I'm going to take it down to either 1 or I think 2 ends up looking better. And then I might take that size value back down to 10. And so you have all sorts of options there. I'll go ahead and click OK to apply this option, and then I'll show you what happens if we follow this up by going to the Object menu, choosing Blend, and then choosing Blend Options. And let's switch spacing to Specified Steps, turn on the Preview checkbox, and then take this value down to something like 10, or I might even take it down to 5 just so we can really see what's going on. And now notice the rolling action that's associated with each one of these intervals. All right, I'm going to go ahead and cancel out, and also press Control-Z or Command-Z on the Mac a couple of times apparently in order to undo that zigzag effect. For a grassy effect, what we need to do is return to the Effect menu, choose Distort and Transform, and choose Roughen. And now I'll go ahead and turn on the Preview checkbox so that you can see that we have a ton of very rough intervals indeed. All right, I'm going to switch from relative to absolute to start things out here. And I'm going to leave the size value set to 5 points. That's the size of each one of these ripples, by the way. So if you wanted more spikiness, you would increase that value. But a size of 5 is going to work just fine for this document. And then I'll tab over to the detail value and take it up to 30 per inches. So in other words, 30 blades of grass per inch. And if you wanted things to be smoother, that is to say you want to use smooth points instead of corner points, you could go ahead and switch this points option if you want to. But I want the spikier action associated with corner points, so I'll leave this option set to its default and click OK. All right, now I'll just go ahead and zoom in a little bit so we can see things a little better. You can undoubtedly see these spikes up here at the top, but if you're working along with me, you should be able to see some action inside the gradient as well. To make the grass effect a little more obvious, go to the Object menu, choose Blend, and then choose Blend Options, and then switch the spacing option to Specified Steps, and go ahead and take this value all the way down to 5, and turn on the preview checkbox. And now you can see an awful lot of cartoon grass action inside this document, at which point I'll go ahead and click OK to accept that effect. And of course, because you're working with the dynamic effect, you can revisit your settings anytime you like by going to the window menu and choosing the appearance command. And then here inside the appearance panel, just go ahead and click on the word roughen, turn on the preview checkbox, and then, for example, I could take this detail value up to 60 per inch, at which point we'll see even more blades of grass. I'm pretty happy with 30, however, so I'm just going to go ahead and cancel out. And then you might want to press Control-H or Command-H on a Mac in order to bring back those selection outlines, because after all, whether they're visible or not is saved along with the illustration. And then finally, I'll go ahead and zoom out by pressing Control-0, and I'll press Control-Shift-A or Command-Shift-A on the Mac in order to deselect the artwork. And that's how you add texture to your custom gradient, by going to the Effect menu, choosing Distort and Transform, and then experimenting with either Tweak, Zigzag, or Roughen here inside Illustrator.